You're going to count me down?
I'm going to count you down.
Count me down.
All right. You going to let me finish this time?
Yes.
All right. So 5, 4, 3. You shut your mouth.
Sorry.
5, 4, 3, 2. Hit it, Chris.
Welcome to the Jon Zone podcast. What's up, Brian?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. How's your day?
Good. It was good. You know, we've been
We had an interesting appointment. We've been together pretty much all day.
Yeah. We left Tyndall
That's
mattress.
podcast fodder. That's what that is.
What does that mean?
It's just like small talk.
Small talk. So you really don't
Yeah.
care. All right.
You want to just get into it?
Let's
today?
just get into it, man.
All right. Today, and you go by Jon or Jonathan? We didn't ask.
My mom obviously likes Jonathan. You know, there's there's some weird politicians and religious characters named Jonathan. So
the Jon Edwards who didn't he get Dominican Republic with his mistress?
All right, let's go Jonathan. Let's make Mama happy.
It's all good.
Jonathan Edwards, who is an Olympian. He's an expert in high performance and athletic development. The Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports Life is a book that he just came out with. It actually just became available for pre-order. It's the ultimate resource for athletes who have a dream and want that dream to come true. This book is for every athlete from high school to the pro level. It's part sports psychology, part business plan for athletic success. Jonathan does corporate speaking. He does motivation. He has online courses for high performance. He's the host of a podcast called Business Called You. He currently runs the #1 teaching and coaching resource for goalies at lacrossegolietips.com.
Where are you reading all this stuff? My God, is that my website?
Dude, I love how it's the #1 teaching and coaching resource for goalies. You really
very specific,
really niche down.
I got a story behind that too, man. It's all good.
Well, Jonathan, welcome to the Jon Zone, man. Good to have you.
You know, it's funny when people read that stuff about you, you realize like I'm not easily definable. And then I've got a pretty varied, background, I guess. But no, thanks, man. This is great. And actually my nickname years ago was Joan, so it kind of fits.
Okay. Cool.
So it kind of fits. John E, right. I wrote John E on all my lacrosse equipment and people called me Joan.
Oh,
so that was it. So no, we're a bunch of Joneses today. So no, I'm psyched to be on. Like this is, I guess the common thread through all that stuff, I competed in the Olympics and what's interesting is that when you're done with the Olympics, everybody your whole life is telling you like, oh man, nothing's going to be better than what you did at the Olympics. Basically life is going to suck from here. That's kind of what people tell you. And one of the things that I took to heart about 16 years ago was I learned about marketing and I learned about audiences and I learned about, picking a niche sort of thing. And the funny story about the lacrosse website, which is a kind of good business lesson was, that was remember here, niches and riches or riches and niches. Right. And well, it's funny. I picked a niche there and I do have like the top lacrosse goalie blog that I've run for now like 16 years, which is really a labor of love, but the niche is too small and it's not very profitable. But it's passionate, right? And so I think the lesson there for everybody is that, there are niches, there are pockets of people, and they're passionate about stuff. And if you can be kind of the expert in a niche, then it's really satisfying personally, that's for sure. But it's funny because that I do that really out of labor of love now. It just, it's the widest read goalie blog in the world. So I've got that going for me.
Well, if you don't mind, man, why don't you walk us through a little bit of your personal story, like you're, growing up and all that sort of stuff, and then some of your professional background, and then how you got into the Olympics and all the other stuff that you're doing now. I mean,
yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm from Boston, born and raised, and both my parents were musicians. They both had their masters in music. And somewhere along the way, about 10 and a half, grade 5 or so, whatever that is, I got into some sports and I just fell in love with it. And I just, no real plan, at the time, obviously didn't have a family. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How unprofessional is that? I'm sorry. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Get out. Wow, man, I'm beating myself up.
This is it. Let's just end this whole.
Forget it.
Sorry, dude. We'll start. So I used to go to a summer camp in upstate New York. My dad was the music director at the oldest boys camp, the oldest YMCA in North America, called Camp Dudley. And I used to go there every summer. And there were two counselors there, two leaders who, when they were in their 20s, they wanted to do something cool before life got serious. Mm-hmm. And they picked a sport they could go to the Olympics in, and they picked luge. And so I moved up to Lake Placid, New York, tried it on ice, and got hooked. And then, one thing left, led to the other. And what's interesting about Olympic sports is that you are instantly on a track of a course, like not necessarily the course of luge, but just the life course, that there's this very definable goal at the end of it. Like, you will be an Olympian or you will not. And so what I find really interesting is that, just kind of, I'm a very visual thinker. You kind of have this scattered life. You're doing all this stuff, and then finally you pick a course and you're leading to this end. But when we get out of that, it's really the other way around. Like, let's use real estate for an example. You pick real estate, but then there's all these different ways to do this, right? You need to get clients. I need to find buyers. I need to find sellers. I need to find listings. And it's just kind of the reverse. And because the end is not that clearly defined. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And a lot of athletes suffer with that when they leave sport, because they're not on this like defined path anymore. It can be quite confusing. So the world of sport is really interesting, and it's really about, you're building basically three abilities: a physical ability, a technical ability, and a tactical ability to figure it all out. And you need all three to be successful. Just like in life, like when you pick finally, a career, you got to have those three things going for you. But it's a mental test of your belief. And I got pretty good at it pretty quickly. I got paired up with a kid from Michigan, and we started doing doubles, and we did really well really quickly. And we were alternates to the 92 Olympics, and which was really a crushing defeat, to be honest. And then 2 years later, when they started alternating the Olympic Games, summer and winter, we finished fourth in Lillehammer, Norway. And
so how old were you?
Oh man, about 21.
Okay, and then how long did you train to get to the Olympics? And then, like, when you say you were partnered up, like, who partnered you up with this guy? Were you in a camp or?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I got a phone call from a guy named Dimitri Feld, and I guarantee you there'll be somebody on this podcast that knows Dimitri. He's just this Russian dynamo who's just super friendly, knows everybody, and he was a coach at the time. And so we had done this junior camp. I left my school. I went away for 2 weeks to Lake Placid, New York. I stayed for 5. And, I was playing hockey at the time, and but did pretty well. Won like the first big junior race I was in. And then that summer they were like, hey, you're this body type and he's this body type. And if we put the two of you together, we'll make a doubles team. And so yeah, Dimitri called me in the summer, said, hey, Johnny E, how you want to do some doubles? And I said, sure, let's, with who? And it was Mark. And so we got paired up, and we had success early, although we were two very, very different people, like very different people. And so we had success for a long time. And we competed all the way together till 95, 96, and finished 4th overall in the world, won a couple World Cup medals. And it's interesting, like luge in North America, a lot of people don't know too much about it, but in Germany, it's like softball. It's like everybody's done it. Guys go out on a weekend, get a couple beers, and go have some runs. And the winner, the best in the sport are like, they're icons. So it's a total juxtaposition. You come home to North America, nobody really knows what the heck you're talking about. You go to Germany, and it's like, luge, wow, yeah, for sure.
One of those sports where I always wonder, like, how anyone even gets started. Like, how do you just hop on and just slide?
All right, so let's take a step back. Can you tell the people who are listening that don't know what luge is?
All right,
North Americans.
So it's in the Winter Olympics, and in the Winter Olympics, it's one of the first sports that goes on in the Olympics. So it's done in the first 5 days of the Olympic Games, and you're on this track of ice, this roller coaster of ice. It's basically kind of like a hockey rink. It's the same mechanics. It's concrete and steel and frozen ammonia pipes that make the concrete cold, and they spray water on it, and you have this track to go down. And so luge, there's 3 sports: luge, bobsled, and skeleton. Luge, you're on your back going feet first. And then bobsled, which a lot of people know from you guys who play football, will go to bobsled. And so that's where you have like 2 guys and 4 guys running at the top of the track, and they jump in and go. And then skeleton is head first. So they're 3 very different sports all on the same track.
Why didn't you do skeleton? You had some sense about you? I mean, how fast
right.
these sleds go?
They go fast, right?
Luge is the fastest of the 3. So the sled has the most control, and the runners, or the steels that we call them, they're actually sharp on the inside edge. So when you're going down and you're doing in a track like in Vancouver, British Columbia, you'll do 140 some odd kilometers an hour. That's close to 80 miles an hour. Right. So you're basically going down, and you're trying to be, it's weird. You're trying to be as relaxed as possible to go as fast as possible, but you're hitting all these different G forces. You're getting 3, 4, 5 times your body weight in some of these curves. And you have to be like on it, because if you try to steer in a straightaway, the sled will skid and steer out of control. And, for those of you that might have been watching the Olympics back in 2010, we had a guy die, flew out of the track and hit a post and died. So it's definitely the most dangerous of the 3 for sure.
And then in doubles, one of you has to lay on top of the other, right?
Yeah, this is true. And this is where it gets really weird. The top man is strapped to the sled, like basically buckled in. And the bottom guy, which I was, like, you're on the bottom. So at the start, the bottom guy is responsible for probably about 85% of the power at the start. And then when you're going down the track, the bottom man is doing the power steering and a lot of the correcting, and the top man is doing a lot of the fine tuning, because he can see and the bottom guy can't. So you learn how to do this really going blind, which is really kind of cool. So yeah, and then you're getting that G force when you're getting compressed by not only your own body weight, but that of the top man on top of you. And I'll tell you this, I'm 45 now. I still have a lot of my body took a lot of beating. And I at the time when you're young and you're going for the Olympics, you're like, yeah, let's do this. Right. And I can get through these injuries. But now 45, I'm like, oh man, my ribs ache, my spine aches, my neck hurts.
Hey, did you watch the movie Cool Runnings?
Of course.
It was like, this is totally unrealistic, or was it a realistic portrayal to bobsled?
The great thing about that movie at the time was it made really good footage, right, of the track. Like there's a lot of, and actually that was shot in Calgary where I live now. But it's not too far off, sport like bobsled, you can get guys who are just athletic and you can get a sled and you can go. And I did bobsled for a few years after I stopped doing luge. And I'll tell you, man, it's a lot of fun. I actually liked bobsled more than I did luge. But Cool Runnings, if someone hasn't seen it, you got to watch it. It's a funny movie. It's a fun movie, and it's real. And there's still a bar. Like a lot of guys don't know this. Like, so the Jamaicans, they raised money. They came to Calgary and they went to a bar in town and called Ranchman's. It's a big cowboy bar. In Calgary's a big cowboy city, and they had a party, and they raised enough money to buy 2 sleds, a 2-man and a 4-man, and they still have a sled sticking out of the side of the bar here, a big Jamaica bobsled. So yeah, it's a cool deal, but it's the real deal watching it for sure.
So you get partnered up with this guy, and what did training look like? Was this all day, every day, or how long did you guys to do that?
Yeah, it's an interesting message that I when I speak to organizations now, I talk a lot about. It's like, you're basically immersing yourself in a culture, and this from your type of work. It's like, you may run into the Starbucks and someone asks you what you do, and you say, oh, we're in real estate. What do you do? Oh, I'm an accountant. And you kind of like, after that, you're kind of done. You don't really get each other's worlds. But when you're with a bunch of people who are in the real estate business, it's like, no, it's totally normal. When I would go to Lake Placid, New York to train at the Olympic Training Center, this is what you did. It's like, we're all on path to be Olympians. So, what you're doing training wise all day, every day, 3 times a day, you're eat, drink, and sleep in your sport. And that's what really, to be ultimately really successful at anything, you kind of have to do. But you immediately run into a challenge when you run into people who are outside of that culture. They question everything. And so you might in your head have this, like, I had this goal of, hey, I want to go to the Olympics now. Like, this is cool. Like, I think I could do that. Like, let's do that. And then you'd go home and you run into people who weren't in that same culture going like, dude, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. And for years, I actually thought I was crazy. People say, oh, you're doing luge? You're nuts. You're absolutely ridiculously crazy. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And what's funny is that when you think that you're actually kind of now like just kind of out of it, you don't think of all the things you put into something. You don't think of like the goal setting and the dedication and the overcoming adversity. You don't think all that stuff. You just think that you're kind of different. But the truth is that when people say that about you, it says more about them than it does about you. And we are in a culture now, because of the internet, because of YouTube, because of, we can get online right now and see an example of somebody doing something that we think is just nuts. But really, what that does when you go to right to crazy is that you totally turn off the possibility that maybe you could do that, right? And so, yeah, going to Lake Placid, you're totally immersed in that Olympic culture, and it's amazing. And you almost have to then keep yourself in that environment. Just like nowadays in work and in business, we have to keep reminding ourselves that what we're doing is actually the right thing, and getting around other people who may be doing it to realize that we're not crazy. So I hope that that resonates, because it's true. It's 100% true, but it is a lifetime thing.
If your goal is to get into the Olympics, something that a very, very small percentage of the world can actually do, it's like you have to, submerge yourself into that discipline and that training and that work ethic. So yeah, I mean, you totally have to do it to be a part of that exclusive club.
Everything has that 1%, right? I see guys who've got real estate signs, for instance, is like, oh, 1% seller or whatever.
Yeah, 1%.
To do that, to do that though, it's attainable. Like it's there, and people very quickly go, oh, I could never do that. And you're like, wait a second, you're not even thinking that you could. So why not ask a different question and think, well, how could I do that? If I was to do that, what would I need to do? And then you now come up with completely different answers, right? Whereas otherwise you don't get any answer. I struggle. I got a son, 12 years old now. He goes online and he goes, oh, I can never do that. I'm like, what do you mean you don't think you could do that? And it could be anything. Or it could be soccer. It could be doing the water bottle flip thingy, whatever. It's like, I see so many kids nowadays, and I sound really old when I say that. Kids nowadays, damn kids these days.
Yeah,
yeah, but it's like they just totally shut down because they don't think that they could possibly do it. And I think that's really sad in a lot of ways.
Were your parents really supportive? I mean, you got musician parents that were master's levels educated. I mean, they're just going to drop their kid off at Lake Placid when he's 15. I mean, how was that? How did that whole thing work out?
They were very supportive. Surprisingly, they probably didn't fully understand. I think, my mom says it best because she was an opera singer, right? And there's a lot of parallels between being a high performer as a musician and being a high performer in sports. But also being a high performer in anything requires a similar path. And so, I think at first, I'm an only child, and, they're probably bummed that I was leaving, but they're also excited about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing, is that, in my book, in An Athlete's Guide to Sports and Life, I see a lot of parents who don't understand what their kid's going through. And that results in, I therefore don't approve of it, as opposed to having a mindset of like, hey, that thing you're doing is unique. Let's put it that way. And I support you. I don't necessarily know everything about it, but that at least keeps it going. other than having a parent who just goes, "You're crazy," like you're not doing that. And so they were very good like that, very supportive in that way, not to kibosh it and to just kind of let it go and to see where it went. And then, but also with a knowing of like, hey, if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna take this time, if you're gonna leave school, if you're gonna move to Lake Placid, if we're gonna spend money on it, there's got to be some sort of a plan here. Like, what are you doing? And as long as there was a plan, then they were supportive, and I think that's fair. Right. So
you guys, you and your partner, you qualify for the Olympics, get that phone call or the coach tells you or whatever, or I guess you win whatever qualifier they have. I mean, walk us through a little bit of, dude, I'm going to the Olympics. Like, and then what was competing in the Olympics like?
Well, I'll share with you a story. Like in '92, which was, I'd only been competing for 4 years at that time, and we were the fastest doubles team in the United States. And the year of that Olympics, we had Olympic trials, and they were all back in Lake Placid. And so it was like a couple races in Lake Placid, and the Lake Placid track was very different than the track where the Olympics were going to be. And so we were the fastest American team in France, but we came back to Lake Placid, and the track is like really twisty, turny. It's kind of the difference between like downhill skiing and slalom skiing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we lost a race in Lake Placid by a really close margin. It was like 800ths of a second, three sleds, all 800ths of a second apart. And so the number one team in that race, Chris and Gordy, they automatically made the Olympic team. And the second team was going to be picked by coach's discretion. And because of a little kind of mix up in the men's singles event, they took the other doubles team that was actually the third fastest doubles team, and we got left home.
Oh, wow.
And that was like gut wrenching, right?
Yeah.
Crushing. There's people still that I know who were in the room when that announcement was made, and they remember like Mark and my reaction. They were just like, it's ridiculous. But what came out of that adversity was kind of this idea, like, you know what, the next Olympics, we aren't going to let it come down to a coach's decision. We want it all in our control. And I think that's really important. Is that a lot of people rely on outside factors, and you really just got to be so darn good that it's that people don't have a choice. And so because of actually our experience, the Olympic trials event was completely changed, and it is what it is now. It goes more on like World Cup results, and so we earned enough points to just race on to the Olympic team. And but the year of the Olympics, the year prior to the Olympics, we were 4th overall in the world. We had won a couple of World Cup medals, and then the year of the Olympics, we had just a crap year. Like we couldn't put two runs together. It was ridiculous. But we were the fastest American team on the track for Norway. But we had such a bad fall that our coaches gave the A seed to the other team. And so when we raced, our bib number, our start number was 17. And so we went 45 minutes after the first sleds. So in 45 minutes, the ice starts to deteriorate. And so you're basically going, on a slower track. And so after the first run, we were 5th, and our teammates who got the other jersey from our coaches, they drew number 1, and we were right behind them. And then in the second run, we again went 45 minutes after the first sleds, and we beat them, and we were 4th. And some people would say that had we had that other jersey number, we would have finished in the medals, but whatever. But it was also kind of a gut-wrenching moment, So people just lost faith in you a little bit. So, but anyway, it's all good news.
Walk us through the results. I mean, I can't imagine losing by.
You done?
Not much. Yeah. How do you take that with you? Like, I mean, gold, there was a half a second between you and gold, 0.3 of a second between you and bronze. I mean, how do you deal with that?
What's interesting is that in the world of sports, you feel like you lost, right? You did lose, like you didn't medal, you don't get your stuff. I got a cool plaque, I think you may see up there. And where's my finger?
Participant ribbon?
Yeah.
In the Olympics?
You gotta, if you finished up top 6, you get this cool like diploma thingy, but it had been the end of a very tough year. And so it was a really good result out of a really bad year. And what's interesting is that in sports, you can kind of take solace in that. You go like, hey, wow, we had a really crazy year, but that was a really good race. We put 2 runs in. It was a really good race, what we had. And you can go like, hey, we did the best of what we could. I have yet to really embrace that same attitude in my work life away from sports. I think I fall into this category of entrepreneurs that get caught in the gap between where you've come and how much further you want to go, right? There's always this horizon that seems to be moving. Whereas in sports, the horizon is very much defined. But in business, in life, we're always chasing, higher revenues, more sales, bigger price per transaction, whatever you have, and so I suffered. I would say I suffer now with that, where I don't give myself enough credit now for the work that I've done. I just finished a book, and I'm still kind of going like, well, no, I just got to sell that thing. Right. And so it's so you can look at missing a medal and go like, oh, so close. And I totally get it. But at the end of that race, it was like, it felt like a good day, So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, and so the Olympics ends in 1994.
Yep.
And
everybody's told you that life's going to suck after the Olympics.
So what did you do after the Olympics?
You're still a pretty young guy at this time.
I was, and I was also I was a high school All-American in the sport of lacrosse in field lacrosse, and I had a chance to go to the University of Notre Dame, and I decided not to go. Which was really tough because, I had an opportunity to get my college tuition paid for. And I think this is an interesting lesson too, is that, as a lot of athletes, you're in a really interesting environment. Like one, you have this totally subsidized lifestyle and you're living this crazy lifestyle. You're traveling the world, you're working out, you're around really healthy people. Everybody, well, that could be argued, but everybody's fit and buff and you're doing all this good stuff. And then now you got to transition that into the rest of your life. And that's really hard. And the U.S. Olympic Committee puts together a program to help athletes transition, but I don't think they really do I don't think you can. I look back on that and I go, the lessons I was taught about, hey, your life's going to suck after the Olympics, right? People outside of sport are going like, oh my God, that was amazing. This is the best thing ever. What they're really saying is like, wow, I'd love to go to the Olympics. That would probably seem really cool. And it seems cooler than what I'm currently doing. Yeah. And so what happened was I kept kind of bumping back into sport. And, but actually through an effort to kind of keep going with sport, I worked with a strength and conditioning coach out in Las Vegas. And he asked me a really interesting question. He goes, listen, he was writing for fitness magazines at the time. And he was like, hey, you seem like a smart kid. I want to grow my business. Can you help me do that? And I said, well, sure. And that got me into the world of marketing and information marketing and being around and being around people who were doers of things, but who were also really good at the marketing of that thing. Because we all know that that's really the recipe of success. It's like, if you're not good at the marketing of what it is that you do, you're not going to have any clients. Yeah. You're not going to have any sales. You're not going to have any revenue. You're not going to have food on the table. And so, but that took a long time. That took 6 years for that to really happen. And so it wasn't an easy transition out of sport. You've probably heard that, I think it's a Buddhist saying, man who chases 2 rabbits loses both. And so when you're an athlete, you're kind of told, hey, listen, you just got to focus and do this one thing. And it's super hard because you put everything else away, and you put school away, and you put, all this other stuff away, relationships, you move on. And that's not an easy lesson to overcome later when you're actually now have to be like a dad and a husband, and you got to have, you got to make money and soothe your other needs too. So yeah, it's not an easy transition for sure. So, but it's led me now to becoming an author and consulting with people and speaking to organizations, because there are a lot of really good lessons to learn from sport that I wish more people understood. It's not just hard work and dedication and goal setting. There's so many other, more sophisticated measurements of success that I think we need we're not taught in school, and we typically have to learn them just kind of through experience. So I like to kind of shortcut that.
What are some of them that you typically share with people?
Well, one of the things when I speak to a corporate group, I bring the lessons of that we've really got three key abilities to be successful in anything. We have a physical ability, a technical ability, and a tactical ability, right? So one, physically, in the United States, as a whole, we're getting pretty bad physically, right? We're going downhill. So a lot of people are just basically walking around with their brain on top of their body. And we put a lot of emphasis on like, well, what do we know? And we try to get the results out of that. But what we don't pay enough attention to is that if we can improve our physical side, that everything else improves. Our thinking improves, our ability to be creative improves. And that goes right to the bottom line. If you can come up with a creative solution to a business problem, you're going to have more profits. You're going to have more money, right? You're going to minimize employee turnover, stuff like that, But a lot of people focus on the technical side of things, especially in business, more certifications, right? More courses, more this, more that, and that works maybe if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, but really the third part of that is that tactical side. When do you do what it is you do? How do you apply what it is you know? If you don't pay attention to those three different abilities, the physical, the technical, and tactical, eventually you reach a ceiling. And what I find a lot of companies do, a lot of entrepreneurs do, is they focus only on one, maybe two of those things. But when they focus on the third one, whatever that third one may be for them, that success really happens. And the other thing about sports that really hampers people, and so people look at sports and they go like, wow, isn't that an amazing performance? And they assume that it's all them, but really there's so many things that go around a great performance, so many people that help make that performance possible. And as entrepreneurs who might be listening to this, we try to do a lot of it on our own. And we never get to this point where we get a little bit of a buffer zone. I call it, lifestyle creep sucks all the money. And so we don't have money necessarily or resources to hire other people to help us do things, to complete projects, right? We tend to rely that it has to be all on us. And really the most successful entrepreneurs would tell you that it's actually assembling a bit of a team. But if what happens, if lifestyle creep or business creep comes in where it sucks all the available resources, you don't have ability to get to that next level, right? And so great performances in sport and anything come from what I call the reserve. It's you picture a glass of water. If the glass of water is totally full, the second you try to move that around, you're spilling out. It's not good. You're stressed out. You're just tapped. But when you get a little bit of space in there, now we can take that glass anywhere, right? We can move it. We can even run with it if there's enough space. But what I find a lot of people do, especially entrepreneurs, like, hey, you make the next sale and you might have a bill to pay, or you might have, maybe more importantly, you might have a toy you want, maybe a better car, more clothes, whatever. Well, all that, you just sucked all those resources out of that. And now you have no space. You have no space to thrive. You're always in survival mode. And so that's what I teach people, is that if you're always in survival mode, you never have great performances. You got to have some sort of reserve to help make that happen. And that usually hits
literally talking to me right now. That's crazy. Well, yeah, that's true though, man.
What do people need to do to make that transition, to take that big step?
We are in a world where we are surrounded by messages of more, of better. I drive my son to school every day and I pass a Lamborghini dealership. Doesn't mean his school is like next to it. Don't get me wrong, right? But I pass a Lamborghini dealership every single morning, and I'm like, hey, I want that. I want that. And there's no reason why I can't have that, and there's no reason why anybody can't have that. It's just like a goal, right? It's just like an Olympic medal, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people go, hey, that's crazy. I could never afford one. Better question. What do I need to do to afford that, to make that happen? What do I need to do to make it happen in my life? In the short term, you do have to put the brakes on a little bit. When we're teaching an athlete on how to be a high performer and we move them up the track, like when I first learned how to do luge, I didn't go right off the top. you move down, you start low so you can start to understand what's going on. You got space to think. You can then have a really good performance. If you move up too quick, now you're in survival mode. You can't think, you can't thrive. So people need to really put the brakes on a little bit, and they might have to scale back. Now I'm not preaching some Susie Orman, like cut the credit card thing. That's not the message I'm trying to say here. But if life's not flowing, and I've been through stages in my life where life has definitely not been flowing, you have to kind of reel it in a little bit to get some headspace and then make the next plan. And then when you have, really the thing we all really, the goals, or I should say the grade for sports and the grade for entrepreneurship is money, right? That's the game. That's the result of the game. You got to have a little bit in reserve so that you can think. And too many people nowadays are saddled in debt. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you really have to like turn off the messages that are that are bombarding us every day. You got to limit like what you're reading and what you're looking at, and just go like, listen, what's in it for me? You got to find some space in your head, like you know, whether you go for a long walk or meditate, whatever it is you need to do, but you got to come back a little bit so that you can make some room to really think. And that's what the best performers will see. You guys interviewed JP Sears, right? Mm-hmm. You know, perfect example of a guy who has had time enough to think, to be creative for one. That's why we all laugh at his work, but also have enough space to be able to, what's the next step to really make this business grow? And he's around some great people now. Yeah. And so that's where high performance comes, not from pushing. And I don't like the message that we get from, you know, I love a guy like Gary Vaynerchuk. I appreciate what he does, but I hate the message. Mm-hmm. When the message is hustle, hustle, hustle every single day.
Hustle your face off.
Yeah. And listen, when I really lose the message when people say that and they don't have kids.
Yes.
You know, but it's taken me a long time to learn that, right? Because those people are usually at the front. They're the ones you see the most. But you got to create some headspace to be able to succeed. And that only really comes when you reel it in a little bit. And people don't like to do that. Like, we're just not really wired for that. But you got to get a little headspace in order to be able to thrive.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
So let's talk about your book, man, The Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life. What made you decide to write a book?
Well, so a couple things. Like, I've been messing with a book now for I know a lot of really successful authors. I've coached people. I think everybody should write a book. You know, basically, I think no matter what business you're in, you need to surround yourself with credibility devices. The thing about a book that's really interesting that gets people kind of confused is you can write a book for a number of different reasons. And I wrote this book first because it was the easiest one for me to write. I'm really passionate about athletes. I'm really passionate about parents and sports, and I think we're doing a big disservice in the United States with sports. Everybody knows somebody who's got a kid in sports, or maybe had one or was. And so it was the easiest book for me to write, but it was really a book about, it's a big book. It's a 300-page, but it's like a Tim Ferriss book. Mm. And the thing about it is that it's a lesson in, I wanted to distill what I had in my head. And I think that's what everybody should do. Everybody's an expert in something, and no matter what their market is. And they should, the book was really about distilling my thoughts and my lessons, because if you knew an athlete or a parent of an athlete or someone who coaches athletes, they should have this book. And if they don't, they're probably just focusing on the technical side of their sport. And like we talked about earlier, you've really got to talk about more than that. And what happens is we spend so much time and effort in sports and in life usually focusing on the technical side. And you've got those 3 key abilities you got to nail down, but then you've got to surround it with your own belief in your abilities. And the book talks a lot. This is a book that if somebody wasn't even involved with sports, they could read this book and they could really apply what's in there to whatever it is they're doing, you know? And so the book, to me, it was important for me to get it out, because I felt like if I died tomorrow, I'd be really disappointed. But secondly, I just run into so many people who just don't get it. I was an unlikely Olympian. my story does not make a lot of sense to people. Like, it's like, how the hell did you do that? Right. I wasn't born to Olympic parents. I wasn't, and so, but I run into, I mean, we're inundated every day with people who are, or if we're watching sports on TV, or if, we spend more money now on youth sports. And a lot of people have a really twisted message about youth sports today. They just think it's horrible. They want to just let the kids play. And that's not the message either, because what kids really want to do is they want to be successful. They want to have something that they're good at. And when they lose, they don't like it. But what happens is we never teach the kids how they should deal with winning or losing. And that's one aspect of this book, is to really helping families deal with this idea of like, hey, if you've got a kid involved with sports, and we need to teach them all this stuff. And it's a lot of work, and people don't necessarily, I like to say this book isn't a popular book, although it should be. But to answer the long answer to your question, like, why did I want to write it? I see so much pain and suffering when people talk about sports. It doesn't matter if a kid's in like U5 or if they're in college or they're trying to go pro. There's such a muddy message, and this book aims to clean that up.
Awesome, man. Hey, real quick, before we wrap up, talk about your podcast. How long have you been doing that? What kind of audience do you have, or, who's it for? And just kind of give us a quick overview on that.
So the podcast is the businesscalledyou.com. And I should back up and say, I guess that people can learn more about the book at athletespecific.com/book. But the podcast, probably very similar to what you guys are doing in some ways. I'm just really interested in people. I like having really interesting conversations. And I think what happens, I get sick of, watching CNN or whatever. I get bored by all of it. But because what happens is when we get around other people who are doing cool stuff, you just feel yourself energized.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share that because I know a lot of really cool people. And I think, the podcast is a way to share some of that and to be learning every day and be inspired and energized. And from a marketing standpoint, if we want to look at it just from a business standpoint, it can make you stand out, like we talked offline, but I love the fact that you guys are doing this in South Carolina and you're pulling off a podcast, which is completely like, it's 180 to what people think you would or should be doing.
Right.
Because the long-term play of it is you get to meet some really great people. You get to network if you do it right, if you follow up, if you stay involved, but it's energizing. And when I meet people, especially business owners, if they've got any entrepreneurial bits in them, if they're listening to the radio or music in their car, I'm like shocked, right? I'm like, seriously, if you're in business for yourself, or if you are like a commissioned salesperson, you have no right to listen to just music. I'm pretty hard on myself. I say like, I'm not successful enough to do that yet. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate it, but I'm like, there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
And for a guy who never went back to college, it's I've learned more. I think I got a PhD in so many things than
calls it Windshield University.
Right. Yeah. If you listen to get some Tom Hopkins or whatever, depending on what your field is in, like literally in a year, you should be your head and shoulders above anybody else in your field. And then you should probably write a book about it.
What I learned on podcasts. All right, man, we got like 60 seconds left. Why don't you just remind everybody who you are, where they can find you, what all you do, and just kind of take us home, man.
This is awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on. A couple things. First off, if you know of an athlete who's got big dreams and you know of parents and coaches who are trying to support that athlete, they need a copy of my book. Go to athletespecific.com/book. And I think what I'll do, we were talking about this before, I'll put a free chapter up there and you can download a free chapter. But really, it's the best $25 you're going to spend if you're in that field. My podcast is over at thebusinesscalledyou.com. And also that would started, I really appreciate people who are trying to do their own thing. If they're entrepreneurs, business owners, and that's what that's for. And then if you've got an organization where you want someone like me to come speak and set them straight or have some fun with it, I speak to schools, I speak to corporations. So head on over to thehighperformanceu.com and you can check me out there. But yeah, reach out. I'm very easy to find. LinkedIn, Facebook at Olympic Jonathan, real easy. So don't be afraid to reach out. And if you heard this and you like the message, send us a note. Let us know that you heard it. That's really why we do this. And too few people actually take the time to reach out and say hi. So please send us all a note and let us know that something we said made a difference in your life. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Jonathan, thanks for coming on the Jones Zone.
Thanks, man. It was a pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Nice job, boys.
That was awesome, dude.
Thanks. A little different for you.
Yeah.
Hey, I was listening to your last one with the